Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for a link to my Amazon store where I've compiled some of the very best items available, including some of my own personal recommendations. Thanks! What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I want to talk about 20 knives that I think would make excellent Father's Day gifts. Now, I know it's we're getting close here, and a lot of people have already purchased gifts for their dad, but I know that a lot of you haven't, and I have to assume that because I also haven't yet. But I put together a list of stuff that's based on, what I feel like, dads would like in terms of a knife, and this is based on, of course, my own opinion with my own dad, and also just looking at the demographic for my own channel, right? Age groups, based on the age group that watches my channel, I'm going to guess that most of your dads are between the age of 40 and 60. And I'm also going to assume maybe that a lot of your dads like knives, but are not super into the knife world. So I tried to pick very carefully. So that's kind of where this is all at. There's expensive stuff on this list and there's inexpensive stuff, but I have handed my dad a lot of knives, and I can always tell whether or not he understands it or is interested right off the bat. I mean, my dad is super open about his thoughts, and if he doesn't like something, he'll go, huh. And if he does, wow, he freaks out. So, yeah, that's what this list is. I've got 20 items here. I think you guys will like them. Thanks so much to my generous patrons for supporting me right now. If you'd like to check out my Patreon, there's a link down in the description. The first knife on the list, as you can see here, is the Manix 2 XL. I mean, by all means, go with the Manix 2, right? I think that, for somebody, assuming that your dad is not somebody who's really associated, or really understands, the high-end knife world, right? I think this is a little bit friendlier than the compression lock. It is certainly a knife that can be manipulated with gloves, right? A lot of times, men between the ages of 40 and 60 or 40 and 65 will view all knives as tools and nothing else. And so ease of manipulation, understanding of the lock, I think is really important. The Spyderco Manix 2 XL is large, will fit a lot of hands, whether they're wearing gloves or not. It has that nice opening hole, which is easy to use with your bare thumb or with gloves. And then that lock is really easy to figure out and understand. It's not something that, is really going to take a lot of excess practice or anything like that. And it's freaking huge. The blade is absolutely ground for continuous cutting. This is a fairly expensive knife. I think these come in at $165-ish, something like that. Oh, by the way, all of these will have links down in the description, so you guys can go check them out. I think this is an excellent Father's Day gift for a knife. Next up, of course, the Benchmade Grip Tilian, but let me throw this idea at you guys. The Benchmade Grip Tilian by itself is kind of boring, right? The coolest thing, I've done this before. Building a custom Grip Tilian is so much fun, and you're going to put some money into it. But I built one actually for my brother. He was the best man in my wedding, and I built him a custom Grip Tilian. And there's nothing quite as satisfying as, taking a platform like the Grip Tilian, getting custom parts for it, which you can also pick up, right down on Blade HQ in the description, and then putting it together yourself and kind of catering it to what you think your dad might like. You can definitely pick up some interesting micarta scales like what you're seeing here. There's lots of different colors of G10. There's titanium, right? Whole bunch of ideas. The Benchmade Grip Tilian is one of the most customizable platforms on the market. So if you really want to get your dad something special, a lot of the stuff on this list is going to be based on choice and being able to kind of cater it towards your dad's personality, right? The Benchmade Grip Tilian is an excellent platform for that. You can get a mini or you can get a standard, somewhere right around $100, and they come standard in S30V, so that's pretty cool. Moving on here, your dad wants an automatic. I'm going to say that multiple times in this video. There's nothing cooler than to somebody who's not really, doesn't really understand the knife world, right? Most people who are not involved in the knife world just automatically think that switchblades are illegal everywhere, which they are still in some cases, so use your best judgment, right? But if you are able to, if it's legal to own in your area, and especially if it's legal to carry, I can promise you your dad will appreciate an automatic. One of the least expensive and most dependable automatic knives out there is the Boker Kalashnikov. Now, they come in a lot of different flavors. I really like these Damascus variants. I think there's one Damascus variant left on Blade HQ at the time of this video. I promise you, your dad wants an automatic. He might not know it yet, but your dad wants an automatic. Every time I show my dad an auto, whether it's a side opening knife or it's an OTF, he just thinks it's the coolest thing in the world. There's something special about pushing a button or flipping a switch right, and it fires the blade right. It's just cool. It'll bring him joy every single time he opens it, and these can be had for, like I said, not very much money. Moving on here, this is the Victorinox Pioneer. Alex, I've got a Victorinox Cadet, and it's a little bit small. My dad's hands are way bigger than mine. Now, it's nice to have a knife in the console of your vehicle, you know, your truck, whatever your dad drives, right? It's nice to have a knife there. It's nice to have a backup knife. It's nice to have a desk knife, right? This makes an excellent just reach for it and use it in the moment tool, even if it's not in his pocket, right? The Pioneer is a little bit bigger than the Cadet. I think it's got a better set of tools with the scissors, the leather punch, and then, of course, got the bottle opener, the can opener, and two different sizes of flathead screwdriver. One can be used as a scraper, kind of a light pry bar. And then, of course, it's got a blade. I have beat the crap out of my Cadet. I've washed it about 16 times, and it's still going. This is not expensive. It looks nice, and it's a really, really great gift. Moving on here. Some people really, especially people who are not really into the knife world, still really like assisted knives. So if you want to get him something that's like really nice and really, you know, kind of crazy looking and special, right? Something he's probably never seen before. The ZT0350TS is small enough to be carried, right, comfortably versus its 0300, its bigger brother, right? The blade geometry is a little bit better, but it's got this big, crazy blade. The Tiger Stripe version in particular is really, really cool, and it's got the assisted feature, right? Which is something that's nice for somebody who doesn't really understand how to build up pressure on the flipper tab and break the detent ball, right? And this is also not a frame lock. I've kind of avoided a lot of frame locks for this list because I've found that my dad and a lot of people who are not used to folding knives really don't understand, or it's not easy for them to manipulate a frame lock. This is simple. All right, the liner lock is covered by the G10 scale on the other side. It's really easy to figure out. These come in S30V. A lot of people really like these knives. They've got external stops so your dad can do what he normally does, right? I mean, I wouldn't suggest using the knife outside of the realm of normal, right? But your dad's going to do what he's going to do with the knife, right? This is a great knife for him to beat on, for sure. It's expensive. It's fairly expensive, but really, really great. And it's made in the USA. Moving on here. If your dad is the type of person that uses a tool and like to the point where you're constantly like, he's going to break it, right? And you want to get him a knife, probably nothing. I mean, really, if your dad is super hard on his tools, there's probably no better knife out there than the Cold Steel T10, right? Again, these are fairly expensive. In fact, they're pretty expensive. I think they're coming in, you know, between 180 and 200 now, but G10 and the triad lock, and it's a super robust triad lock. And then you have that big, thick slab of, I believe, S35VN. Man, this thing is a beast. I mean, if you want to get your dad something that is essentially, you know, I mean, it's not completely indestructible, but about as indestructible as a folding knife can be, the Cold Steel T10. And it's freaking huge, right? I mean, this is something that he could literally, I mean, if he works outside a lot, right? Everybody's dad does something different. But again, I'm speaking from, you know, perspective, thinking about my dad who works outside all the time. He literally doesn't even have to carry it in his pocket. He can throw it in his tool bag, whatever, right? He can beat on this thing. I mean, eventually it's going to go dull, right? But, I mean, at least the thing won't come flying apart. This is about as meaty as it gets for a folding knife. Excellent choice. Moving on here, I'm kind of cheating because this isn't really a knife, you know, its first function. It's got a lot of functions. This is the Leatherman Surge. I used to own this thing, and it is far and away the most robust multi-tool out there. This thing is crazy, and it is absolutely, you know, something that your dad could keep on his desk, in the console of his vehicle, in his tool bag, right? Wherever. This thing does it all. And there's been tests. I've seen some crazy destruction tests on this thing. Like they tried to run it over with a vehicle and drop it off the side of a building. And man, this thing is crazy tough. Again, if your dad's hard on his tools, right, which is pretty typical of people between the ages of 40 and 65, yeah, for sure. Again, fairly expensive, but man, this would make an excellent Father's Day gift if he doesn't have one already, or if the one he's got is something he picked up at Walmart, right? That's fairly common to see that. Moving on here, if your dad uses his tools so hard that even the Cold Steel T10 is probably not going to do it, and you need to go with a fixed blade and you don't want to break the bank, the Ontario Rat 5 is an amazing choice. These things come in at well under $100. They are micarta and 1095. It is a very big, heavy-duty, you know, handle. I mean, there's lots of room. It's got a glass breaker on the outside. It's got a forward choil. It's a fully flat ground blade. This thing can be beat on. This is probably the most durable item on this list. Everybody likes fixed blades. I mean, not everybody, but most people like receiving fixed blades as gifts. I would say at least dads, even if they don't plan to use it a lot. But man, this is a super functional tool. This is a knife that I honestly, you know, a fixed blade that I honestly could recommend to just about everybody who's really planning on going out and just beating the crap out of their stuff. Awesome blade for sure. Moving on here, if you want to get your dad something that's a little bit more proper, oh, hilarious joke. Yeah, the Benchmade Proper for sure. This one's shown in carbon fiber and S90V. It's definitely the more expensive one. I actually did give my dad a Benchmade Proper. His is the clip point with the red G10 scale. You can also pick that one up. I'll link it down below. Much less expensive, but these things are nice. It's just a single-bladed kind of knife, again, to just have on his desk, right in the console of his vehicle, in his tool bag, wherever. You know, this is just a great little knife, and they're made well. They can be taken apart, right? You can take these a lot of these knives. You can take them apart and clean them, you know, or easily sharpen them, right? In the event that your dad really just uses it without any, you know, without babying it like a lot of us do with our knives, us enthusiasts and collectors, right? This is an excellent knife. Whether you get the standard one in S30V and G10 or micarta, they also come in micarta, and I think maybe a couple other variants. I'll link them all down below, right? Carbon fiber one, super cool. I've actually given this knife as gifts many times and suggested it as a gift many times, and people always love them. Awesome blade. Moving on here, if you want to go a step up and get him a slip joint that is built by somebody who is, you know, known for building knives that are meant to be used, the Hinderer Slippy is a great choice, and here's why. I think this is really cool because it can be manipulated with one hand, and also the little tab can be adjusted. So if your dad has bigger or smaller hands, that little disc can actually be adjusted on the blade to, you know, make it perfect for, you know, how your dad's going to use it or how his hand sits on the blade. It can also be completely removed if he doesn't care and wants to just use the little nick, right? Pocket clip has different positions. The G10 is set up, you know, to be nice and grippy. There's also a forward choil on it. These are awesome, and they are to date the least expensive real Hinderer knives that are out there. These come in at about 285 bucks. I know a lot of this stuff is really expensive. I promise there's some less expensive stuff coming. Lots of different colors, different blade shapes. You can get a sheep's foot, you can get a slicer grind. I think they have a spear point. Lots of cool stuff here, and again, very easy to take down. And there's a lot of different parts out there that are modular, so you could also pick up some of the cool modular Hinderer parts, you know, to kind of make it special for him. This is what I was talking about, making it special for your dad. I think this is a really good option. Moving on here, the Buck 110, but again, your dad wants an auto. I'm telling you, your dad wants an auto. This is the Buck 110 Elite that comes in S30V and is a switchblade. Your dad probably has seen this knife before, right? How cool it would be to pick him up one that is an automatic and a lockback. I'm telling you, that'll blow his mind. These are fairly expensive. I think they are on sale right now, but they're still pretty expensive, right? But again, if you just want to get your dad something super cool, whether he's going to use it or not, just something really cool, right? Oh my gosh, this is such a dad knife. It's a funny term, dad knife, but I'm telling you, this is a dad knife. Moving on here, another cold steel, right? If the 8010 is a little bit too big, if your dad's pretty hard on his tools, right? The cold steel American Lawman is a great choice, and these come in well under $100. It's a lockback, so it's going to be easy for him to figure out, right? It's lefty friendly, and as is the case with a lot of these. It's got a great blade shape, S35VN. I mean, this thing is mega durable. If your dad treats all tools as tools, regardless of what classification of item it is, this is a fantastic. This is one of the best folding knives ever made. It has consistently made my top 10 or top 20 greatest folding knives of all time list. Oh my goodness, the cold steel American Lawman is an excellent gift for sure. And it's, like I said, it's ambidextrous. Moving on here. I don't know if there's another knife out there in the modern knife world that screams dad knife like the standard version of the Benchmade Crooked River. We've got some orange on there. We've got some wood on there. We have a clip point blade, right? But it has some of the cool modern elements. The axis lock, I think, is something that, you know, they'll be able to pick up pretty easily. I feel like my dad organically understands how the axis lock works. As is the case with any Benchmade knife, you know, they do deal with omega springs, so it might be something you might have to help out with maintenance if your dad is not accustomed to, you know, the folding knife world and little things like that. But man, I have a Crooked River and I love it. Mine's in the custom shop, which is also something that you have the option to do. If you know, the mini Crooked River, if it's a little bit too small, again, they do make a large Crooked River, which is also really, really cool. I feel like I look at this and I'm like, yeah, that's a dad knife for sure. Moving on here, again, your dad wants an auto. I'm telling you, the Kershaw Launch 1 is my favorite of the Launch series. These are made in the USA as well. This one's awesome because it's a little more robust. It's got cutting geometry that's really, you know, meant to like do continuous cutting and be used as a tool, right? This one also reminds me of the ZT0095, and then there's another Kershaw that's actually shaped fairly similar as well. But this is an awesome, awesome automatic knife. This one, all black, has the red firing switch. It is recessed, and while the button is on the show side, it's on. I mean, obviously, it's not an ambidextrous switchblade, which actually does exist in one of the Benchmade ones that's discontinued. But you can switch the pocket clip to the other side. This is a nice US automatic that is really good quality. I've handled a lot of the Launch series knives. I really like them. And they can be had for, I think, right around $100, something like that, maybe a little over. They're going to cost less than your Protecs and your Microtecs for sure. So that's a good option. Moving on here, if you do want to get your dad into the kind of the more the part of the knife world where that a lot of us appreciate, and that's a properly tuned detent, good manual action, not assisted, right? The bare knuckle is a great choice. I would recommend the Damascus one because it makes it kind of special, and we all know this is probably going to be a limited edition, right? On top of that, it is an excellent tool, nice lightweight aluminum frame, and then you have, of course, that excellent sort of sheep's foot style blade with the little kind of a little beak at the end, which is going to be great for just, you know, regular EDC tasks, and in some cases, some harder use. I've always thought the bare knuckle was a great knife, but again, if you're trying to introduce your dad into the knife enthusiast community, into like the you know, the more manual, properly tuned detent part of the knife world, this is a great one to start with, and it's not that expensive. Moving on here, again, another awesome sort of backup gentleman's knife that he can leave on his desk or in the console of his vehicle, the Sabae V Rustic Gent. Now, these don't all come in Damascus. This one is in Damascus. It's probably the setup that I would pick up. Carbon fiber bolster and G10 on the scales. It's contoured, has a nice clip point blade, and a little nail nick right there, and it's a lockback. So, I mean, I don't know if I said slip joint or not. This is actually not a slip joint. It's a lockback. So it's got a lot of elements that are going to be very familiar to dads who just aren't, you know, familiar with the knife world, right? And I'm not leaving out dads that are older. I know that there are people who watch my channel who are in their 60s who are well versed in the modern knife world, right? And you know, yeah, if you're lucky enough to still have your dad, right? And he's much older, then obviously this list applies to you. I was just trying to think, you know, in terms of my demographic, but this is a much less expensive knife because, you know, in terms of these materials, because it's not made in the USA. But man, I've handled this knife. It's excellent, excellent cutting geometry, and it's sure to just be, you know, kind of a wow as soon as they open it up. This is an awesome variant. If you want to spend a little less money or you don't like the Damascus, there are, of course, just regular, you know, the satin finished blade, which I believe is D2, might be 9CR 18 MOV. Either way, as a backup knife, as a desk knife, excellent, excellent knife. Moving on here, again, another great budget option. I've brought this knife up many times. This is one of my favorite budget knives of all time, the Sabae V Praxis. This is going to be a bigger liner lock, which is, again, a little bit easier to figure out, in my opinion, than a frame lock. Excellent cutting geometry. This is a full-size knife. It's excellent to be used, you know, in terms of, like, if he's going to be using it with gloves. Amazing ergonomics. I mean, I could gush about this knife all day. I have a full review on this knife, as is the case with many of the knives on this list. This is an excellent option as a gift that's meant to be used as a tool that's not going to break the bank. I think these come in between 40 and 50 bucks right now, and they come in a wide variety of different colors. Like I said, links in the description. Moving on here, your dad wants an automatic, and what better automatic than the Protec Godfather? Oh, perfect! This is super cool, and it looks like a switchblade from the movies, right? I mean, this is like the quintessential side opening switchblade look. This thing is awesome. Again, if you can carry and or own switchblades in your area, then this is a great one. It is definitely expensive, but this one particularly is very handsome. We've got the black aluminum frame, and then we have the carbon fiber inlay, and then you've got that awesome, in this case it's like a bayonet ground blade, just sharp on one side, but very classy, cool. It's a big auto too. Now there is also the Godson, which I'll link if you want to go with something smaller and a little bit less expensive. These are made in the USA. Protec makes the best side opening automatics on the planet, so it would be a really good opportunity to get him something that he thinks is really, really cool, and at the same time, super high quality. Absolutely. Moving on here. Do I need to say it again? Your dad wants an auto. If you want to get... My dad loved my Ultratech more than any other knife that I have handed to him. I got him a Lightning for one of the Father's Days a while back, but he literally asked me. My dad is 63, and he said, "How much are these?" And I told him, and he was like, "Wow, that's that's tempting," which is crazy because he's not at all like really involved in the knife world, right? And that's a lot. I mean, essentially, these knives come in, I think they start out at like $265. There's a lot of different colors for these, right? I don't know that the clips can be mounted on both sides, but because of the position of the switch, it's kind of ambidextrous, at least in, function in terms of deployment. Lots of different blade shapes, lots of different colors. This is expensive, but it is, to date, one of the very best OTFs out there for the money, and it's US made. If you feel like your dad might like a switchblade, and I feel like he probably would, yeah, this is an excellent, excellent choice. And finally, easily the most expensive knife on the list, the Reeve Manaan, or however you pronounce that. This is the quintessential gentleman's small knife. This is actually you could call it a liner lock. I call it a frame lock with overlays, right? Lots of different, exotic woods, different types of, like they've got carbon fiber. I think they've got, maybe do they have micarta? But, if you really want to spend some money, these are definitely the most expensive knives on the list. They start out somewhere around $400, maybe $450. They come standard, I believe, in S35VN, but you can get different types of Damascus, right? If you really want to get your dad something like that, well, I almost said that he could pass down, right? If you want to buy your dad a gift that he can pass back down to you. I'm sorry, that's terrible, right? But seriously, if you want to get your dad something that's going to last for the rest of his life and just be an awesome, just really, really interesting, desk piece or something that he carries on his person every day, just the classiest, coolest, small EDC knife with, essentially the aesthetic that you think your dad might enjoy the most. I think the Reeve Manaan is certainly one that is appropriate for this occasion, which of course is Father's Day. Guys, that is going to be it for my top 20 knives. Top 20 best knives to give your dad for Father's Day if you haven't picked something up already. Like I said, links for all of this stuff down in the description. That's going to be pretty much it today, guys. I hope that you were at least entertained by this. If you were, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.